Welcome back to the Scorpio Blueprint. Before we begin this step, pause for a moment, settle your breath, settle your attention. This work isn't about indulging feelings or dramatizing struggle. It's about seeing things clearly, without distortion, without excuses, without the stories you've used to protect your old patterns. Every step in this blueprint is a confrontation with truth. What is in your control? What isn't, and what you've allowed to keep you stagnant. You're here to do the internal work that most people avoid, to examine your motives, question your defaults, and turn away from habits that have cost you time, energy, and self respect. This is not about perfection. It's about progress through discipline, honesty, and consistent action. As you listen, remember real transformation isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's built quietly. One decision, one boundary, one deliberate act at a time. So clear your mind of noise and prepare to move into the next step with clarity and intention. Let's get into step 4. Step 4, establish boundaries like your life depends on it, because it does. Boundaries aren't walls, they are the foundation of healthy relationships, including the one with yourself. And if you've been a lifelong people pleaser, boundaries probably feel foreign, uncomfortable, maybe even cruel. They're not, they're essential. A boundary is simply a clear line that defines where you end and someone else begins. It's the difference between I'll consider your feelings and I'll sacrifice my well being for your comfort. It's the difference between compassion and self abandonment. The reason you've struggled with boundaries isn't because you're too kind, it's because you've been taught that your needs are negotiable and that other people's comfort matter more than your peace, that saying no makes you selfish. These teachings are wrong, devastatingly, completely wrong. Setting boundaries isn't about controlling other people. It's about honoring yourself. It's about recognizing that you're responsible for your own well being. And that responsibility starts with protecting your energy, your time, and your peace. I learned about boundaries the way most people pleasers do, through their complete absence. I had almost none. I was available to everyone all the time for anything. My phone was always on, my door was always open, my answer was always yes. And I thought this made me a good person. I thought this was love. I thought this was what it meant to show up for people. But it wasn't love. It was self abandonment with good marketing. I will never forget the moment I realized I needed boundaries. I was on my day off, my first in 3 months. And I was sitting creating something that mattered to me and that I'd been waiting to create for a long time. And then my phone rang. There's a colleague calling about a work issue that wasn't urgent, wasn't my responsibility, and definitely did not require my immediate attention. And I answered. Of course, I answered. And I spent 45 minutes problem solving someone else's issue while the sun set on my day off. When I hung up, I looked at the project that I was no longer enjoying, and I felt something that I'd never let myself feel before: rage. Not at my colleague, but at myself, for answering the phone, for engaging, for prioritizing someone else's minor inconvenience over my own desperately needed time for something I needed for myself. And that is when I understood without boundaries, I would never have a life. I would only have an existence shaped entirely by other people's needs. So I started setting some boundaries, but I based it on a framework that I worked through the year of my transformation. So here's the framework for establishing boundaries that actually work. First, get clear on what you will and will not accept. This requires you to know yourself, your values, and your non negotiables. What behaviors drain you? What treatment is unacceptable? What do you need to feel safe, respected, and valued? This is harder than it sounds because most people pleasers have spent so long ignoring their own needs that they don't even know what those needs are anymore. So start by paying attention to yourself, your body. Your body knows before your mind does. When does your chest tighten? When does your stomach clench? When do you feel drained? Those physical responses are showing you where boundaries are needed. Common boundaries that you might need are time boundaries, which is how much time you give to others versus yourself, emotional boundaries, what emotional labor you're willing to do, physical boundaries, who can touch you and how, mental boundaries, what conversations you'll engage in, and resource boundaries, what you'll share, money, space, possessions. For me, I realized I needed a boundary around my evenings. I'd been answering work calls, texts, and emails at all hours. My entire life had become an extension of my work, and I had no space that was just mine. So I decided after 8 p.m., I'm unavailable for work, period. No exceptions unless it's a genuine emergency, and someone else's poor planning does not constitute my emergency. This felt radical. This felt selfish. This felt like I was letting people down. It was none of those things. It was basic self respect. Second, communicate your boundaries clearly and without apology. This is where most people falter. They hint, they suggest, they hope others will just intuit what they need. Or they over explain, apologize, and invite negotiation. Don't do any of that. State your boundaries simply. I'm not available after 8 p.m. I don't discuss my personal life at work. I need a day to myself every week. I won't tolerate being spoken to that way. I'm not comfortable with that. No justification needed. No elaborate explanation. No apologizing for having needs. The moment you start explaining why you have a boundary, you're inviting the other person to argue with your reasoning. Your boundary doesn't require their understanding or agreement, it only requires your commitment to it. I used to say things like, I'm so sorry, but I really need to get some sleep because I've been so tired lately and I have this thing tomorrow. So I can't really talk right now, but if it's really important, I can probably. Do you see what that's doing? It's apologizing for the boundary, justifying it, and then immediately offering to violate it. Now, say instead, I'm not available right now. I can connect with you tomorrow during work hours. That's it. No apology, no justification, no negotiation. And you know what's amazing? Most people respect it. The ones who don't respect it are exactly the people who needed you to have boundaries in the first place. Maybe you're a Libra, and the idea of stating a boundary without softening it, without considering how it might affect the other person's feelings, without trying to keep everything balanced and harmonious, it feels impossible. But your harmony can't come at the cost of your peace. Real balance includes you. Maybe you're a Pisces and boundaries feel harsh, unspiritual, unloving. But boundaries are the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for others. Clear boundaries create clear relationships. They eliminate resentment, manipulation, and confusion. Maybe you're a Cancer and you worry that having boundaries means you're not nurturing anymore, that you're failing in your role as caretaker. But you can't pour from an empty cup. Boundaries ensure you have something left to give, including to yourself. Third, hold the boundary even when it's uncomfortable. This is the hardest part. People will test your boundaries, especially if you've never had them before. They'll push back, they'll get upset, they'll try to make you feel guilty. They'll tell you you've changed, that you're being difficult, that you're not the person they knew. Let them be uncomfortable. Their discomfort is not your emergency. You can only control your own actions and responses, not how other people react. Someone else's tantrum over your boundary is information. It tells you they benefited from you having none. It tells you they preferred you without self respect. It tells you they're not safe for the version of you that's emerging. When I set my 8 p.m. boundary, several people were not happy. One colleague in particular kept calling after hours, leaving voicemails about how she really needed to talk about something that was inevitably not urgent. The old me would have called back immediately, apologizing for not being available, reassuring her that I was always there for her. The new me? I texted the next morning. I saw you called last night. I'm available between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. for work matters. What do you need? She was upset. She told me I'd changed. She said I used to be so accessible, so helpful, so reliable. She was right. I had changed. I'd stopped being reliable to everyone else at the expense of being reliable to myself. And here's what happened. She adjusted. She learned to bring things to me during work hours. She learned to solve some problems herself. She learned that my boundary was firm and she respected it. The people who respect your boundaries stay in your life. The people who need you boundaryless have to leave. Both outcomes are good. In part two of this step, we will continue with the boundaries that actually work. I will see you in the next video. In the meantime, like, share, and comment if you feel compelled to do so. Your interaction could help someone else find this playlist for their own transformation. Thank you for joining me for the Scorpio Blueprint.